Good Wednesday afternoon to you. Welcome to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. Pleasure to be with you, and I hope you are having a great hump day. Hotter than heck out there, though, isn't it? My goodness. All right, let me tell you what I have lined up for you today. It's going to be a relatively short stock market recap position here. Kind of just more of the same. We're in a good spot, by all means. But as I said yesterday, kind of give you, as I like to call it, the warning shots across the bow a little bit. Market starting to show a few signs of getting a little bit tired, especially on the NASDAQ side of things. That's what I'd mentioned yesterday. And indeed, that did happen today. We find ourselves in a situation where any little bit of bad news, and they will use it as a profit-taking excuse. Nothing wrong with that, especially the way this market has run up. You realize, and this was as of this morning, I didn't get a chance to calculate it after the close, but do you realize over the last 7 days, NASDAQ's up around 9%? Again, that was before today's slight decline here. S&P and the Dow up about 6% over the last 7 days. Been a heck of a run. Remember, historically, the S&P returns, including dividends, about 10% a year. So to get 6% in 1 week, profit-taking should be expected. Don't think this thing is just going to continue to run forever and ever. It just can't happen. So I'll go through what happened today. Like I said, not an exciting day. No news on the potential ceasefire talks. Oil prices were relatively tame, had a small loss there. But NASDAQ, again, was the problem spot. So anyways, we'll go through that. Let me tell you what I have lined up after I get to the stock market side of the program. It's Wednesday. I always bring to you a estate planning topic on a Wednesday. And I've titled today's show, Why You Don't Have to Be Wealthy to Have an Estate Plan. Why you don't have to be wealthy to have an estate plan. Probably one of the most common questions I receive is, John, I know the importance of having an estate plan, the revocable trust that specialized trusts can do, and so on and so forth, the entire estate plan. But I don't think I have enough wealth. I'm not a millionaire. I don't really need that. Well, first, I'll give you kind of the textbook answer. So, if I had a room full of estate planning attorneys, I'd say the consensus is if you have assets greater than $25,000, you need a revocable living trust. You need the estate plan, right? But I take it a little bit step further. And frankly, most people that have any concern about protecting their estate and their family are going to have more than $25,000. So that's, really never an issue. But many people believe, again, that you've got to be a multimillionaire to have a living trust. Well, the truth is this, and a lot of people don't realize it, and that's why I want to talk about this with you today. If you own a home, if you have children, or you simply want your wishes honored, not the court's wishes, but your wishes, you may already have everything that you need to benefit from an estate plan. So today I'm going to discuss why estate planning isn't about how much money you have, but more importantly, and I'm going to hit on this point a lot today, it's about protecting the people that you love. Think about that for a second. It's not about the money. It's about protecting the people you love. So I'm going to go through all the reasons that probably the vast majority of you need an estate plan. It's really that simple. Now, speaking of which, I'm going to use this as a segue. Every other Wednesday, I hold an educational webinar for you so you can learn about this crazy world called estate planning. Well, we have our next one lined up next Wednesday, which of course is going to be August the 12th. The title of the educational webinar is called The Step Most Families Miss. The step most families miss, and that is trust funding. That's right. That is the most common one. So we're going to talk about what is trust funding, why people have a misconception that they think, oh, I create a living trust and I'm done. And what ends up happening? They don't fund it, meaning they don't get the assets moved in. And now here comes the surprise for the family when they pass away. I want to make sure that never, ever happens to any of you. So once again, it'll be at 6 p.m. next Wednesday. All free, of course. It's all about education. Just go to my website. We've made it a little bit easier for you to register. I didn't like the way we had it before, so I had the programmers do a little change. Just go to our website, specializedtrusts.com, specialized trusts with an S.com, and right on the homepage, click to register. That simple. Can't beat that. Love to see all of you there, by all means. So again, that'll be next Wednesday, 6 p.m. I'll be giving you a lot of reminders between now and next Wednesday, but get signed up as soon as you can. Again, trust funding, the step most families miss. Okay, so let's get down to the stock market. Then we're going to come back to the estate planning side of things. Well, it's been, as I said, a very powerful 4-session run that we have seen in the market. I mean, yesterday was, north of 900. Day before was north of 500. Today was 263-point gain on the Dow. So again, just mind-boggling. as I keep saying each and every day. I know no other way to explain it. It is mind-boggling. I feel bad if any of you are brand new to the market and you think this is the norm, because like I said, we find ourselves in a situation where just in a period of a short week, it's, almost a normal year, but there's no such thing as normal anymore, not by any means. But we took a little bit of breather, like I said, on the NASDAQ side of things today. We had a problem on the NASDAQ side with Google. That was really one of the catalysts there. Now, stock has, again, been on an extreme up tear, but today gave a little bit back, down 4.05%, $15.22 loss to 360.13. The stock came under pressure after the Wall Street Journal reported that their Google as a chief strategist, not strategist, I'm used to saying strategist for Wall Street, chief scientist and AI strategy leader. That's what I meant to say. His name is Jeff Dean. He said he's going to leave the company to launch a startup focused on scientific discovery. So obviously a key executive, it appears, in Wall Street's eyes, so they pressured the stock. That made the communications sector finish down about 2.4%. SpaceX. How can we go a day without talking about SpaceX? Remember, IPO was priced at 135, opened, where'd we open? 150, and went up from there and gave us a couple nice days of gains, and it's just been a slow, steady descent down. And today was no different. A lot of pressure on the stock today. SpaceX lost 13.61%, $17.06 loss to 108.27. Again, on the earnings call, they said they plan to enter the wireless market. Now, this was on top of, and then remember the analyst call or earnings call was yesterday. This is on top of their capital expenditures, beyond AI, data centers, etc., being more than what the street thought it was going to be. Just typical scenario that we're seeing there. We had a little bit of weakness in Amazon today, down $4.77, 1.72% loss, closed at $272.65. Tesla, $5.80 loss, down 1 3/4 to $321.55. Again, so some of the profit taking I was talking about yesterday. Chip stocks, they weren't our friend today. Pull back there. AMD down about $36.53. NVIDIA bucked the trend though, up $7.28 to $219.22, 3.43% gain. Let's see, SanDisk, back to the memory space, down $77.12, 5.4% loss. Western Digital down about $29.39, a 5.36% decline. We did have an incredible day, as I'll share with you when we come back, in gold prices. Tell you what we did, and boy, did we have a nice move. And our friends, over to the east, Newmont Corporation and Barrick, but Newmont specifically, finished the day with a gain of $6.54, 6.69% gain. It was the best performing stock in the S&P 500. Closing level of Newmont, 104.27. Let's see, over to the healthcare sector. Group did pretty good, up 1.3%. Lilly was a star performer there, up $53.09, 4 3/4% gain to $1,168.77. Amgen, a $17.80 rise there, 4.57% to $407.83. Both of those companies reported much, much stronger than expected earnings reports. So that was the catalyst there. Let's go ahead and move it on over to the commodity side. I'll get that out of the way. Like I said, very quiet day on oil. No major news coming out of the negotiation front. So they drifted a bit lower. We had periods where the oil was up slightly, but finished down slightly. 55-cent loss at $75.18 a barrel. Gold, like I said, $153.10 rise. Very strong, $4,305 an ounce, and down 1 basis point on the 10-year Treasury to a close there of 4.62%. Now, after the incredible run-up, where do we sit? I always like to keep you up to date on this on a year-to-date basis. Here's your numbers. For the year, the Dow is already up 13.1%. S&P higher by 12.8%. NASDAQ rising 13.4%. And still our top-performing sector, or average, as it has been throughout most of the year, the Russell 2000, the small caps, with a 21.7% year-to-date gain. So, like I said, overall looking good, very quiet, little pause here. Don't be surprised if, again, we get a couple days, for the rest of the week, pausing unless some, incredible earnings numbers come out, which can always happen. I haven't had a chance to see what the earnings calendar is for tomorrow, but you never know. But overall, everything is still solid. Everything is still based upon earnings numbers and, of course, what happens in the negotiations with Iran. All right, with that said, I'll come back, tell you where the market finished, and then we're going to get into our topic, why you don't have to be wealthy to have an estate plan. Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. Happy Wednesday to all of you. Here's how we finished up. A record-setting day for the Dow, but that was it. No other averages participated. Finished with a gain of 263 on the Dow, 0.49% to a close of 54,349. We lost 222 points on the NASDAQ, 0.83%, closing at 26,363, and the S&P 500 lower by 13 points at a close of 7,723. Once again, oil down 55 cents to 75.18 a barrel. But a good day for gold, $153.10 rise to $4,305 per ounce. All right, you're up to date. Let's get down to our topic today. Why you don't have to be wealthy to have an estate plan, right? Again, very, very common misconception. So again, one of the most common things that I hear from people is this topic, which is why I'm doing it with you today. They say, John, I'm not wealthy enough. I need a trust. Again, people think you got to have millions of dollars. Not the case whatsoever. And my response is always very simple. It's what I want to tell you what it is. I tell them, look, estate planning isn't about protecting wealth. And in a roundabout way, it is. But to me, it is not the number one reason that someone invests into an estate plan. Estate planning is about protecting the people that you love, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren. Then we get into the assets, your homes, your investment accounts, businesses, so on and so forth. And also about your wishes, about your legacy. And if you look at it that way, that it's about protecting the people you love, everything else will fall into play. But the minute you say, again, I need $1 million before it's worth it. No, you don't. No, you don't. I'm dealing with a situation right now where literally a bank will not release a $149 account for one of my dear clients whose wife passed away. And theoretically, it has to go to probate unless they were trying to do a few other things for him. But that's where it is. The account was in the wife's name only. Unfortunately, she passed away, bless her heart. And he's trying to just close out the account. Again, it's $149, but that's where it is. Imagine if you had a few zeros after that $149. Imagine that whole scenario going to probate. Again, I'm not going to discuss the nastiness of that, but you all know what it is. So with that said, that's what I want you to keep in mind. Everybody needs an estate plan if you have loved ones. The money side comes second. So today I'm going to discuss with you why estate planning, again, is one of the most important things that a family can do, regardless of the size of their balance sheet. So here we go. If you own a home, you already have something worth protecting, right? As I always say, it's probably your number one or your number two asset on your balance sheet. Again, do you want the courts to determine what happens to your home? Do you want your kids have to pay the mortgage payment and the utilities and the property taxes because they can't access the bank account? They can't sell the house. They can't do anything until, of course, the probate judge says that they can, which again, we know that runs, it can be 3 months on the best side. I just talked to two people yesterday. It was both of them the same day. And they're being quoted 9 months in Washoe County probate court to get their cases heard. Not saying there's not some paperwork done in the meantime, but to get in front of a judge, 9 months, everything's frozen. But also, many of you, of course, have vacation homes or rental properties. Whole nother ballgame there. And I want to throw in this home because for some reason, again, people automatically think, and which is correct. Again, if you have a joint tenant rights of survivorship titling on your home, so it's you and your spouse typically, you're fine. Yeah, you don't need an estate plan for that. But again, you die, and let's say you're the man, you die first, and then the house, of course, becomes your wife's. But what about if you have a blended family, right? What if she's your second, third, fourth, fifth wife? Is she the one that you want to have to get all the money? Maybe, maybe not. So again, I can go down an entire path on that side of it, but you get my point. It's a large asset, lots of value there, hopefully lots of equity, and it needs to be taken care of properly. The vacation home, like I said, well, then we get into a whole other issues there, but same principle as your primary, big asset. What if you own family heirlooms, right? I see it all the time. Moms usually want the daughters, if there are some, or the granddaughters to inherit the family jewelry, right? That's maybe been passed down from generations, or the china. So we'll just call it the heirlooms. What about, of course, things that men have, right? Guns, fishing rods, all kinds of fun stuff. Same thing. Who's going to get it? No one knows if you don't have an estate plan. The bank accounts, obviously, that it goes without saying. So what you have to ask yourself is this. Would you want these assets transferred according to your wishes or according to Nevada state law or California state law? It comes down to that. It's really that simple. Who do you want to determine where your assets go to? Now, the next reason that the size of your balance sheet doesn't matter is this nasty I word. Now, I usually say nasty I word and I talk about inflation, but not in estate planning. When I say the nasty I word, incapacity. Because remember, I should probably pause right here. Remember when we talk about an estate plan, it's not just a revocable trust. That's one of 4 major components. So in the estate plans that we create and most attorneys would create, you have 4 major components. It's the foundation, your revocable trust, your pour over will, your advance directive, which is basically your financial power of attorney, and then your medical directive. Those are the 4 documents. Let me repeat that. Revocable trust, pour over will, financial or advance directive, which is the financial power of attorney, and the medical directive. Those are your 4 basic documents. Okay. People think, oh, I just have the revocable trust. No, you also, that's a great thing about an estate plan. It's not just about your death, it's about incapacity. So many people, when we talk about estate planning, are thinking about death. We had this discussion yesterday. My son did with a client, and the conversation came to an abrupt halt because they did not want to talk about death. Well, nobody does, of course, but it's a reality. But we emphasized to this client, look, it's not just about death. That's one of them. What happens with your assets after you're gone? It's about the incapacity. And I'm sure vast majority of you, especially if you got a few gray hairs in your head, have dealt with this in some form or fashion with your parents, your grandparents, friends, relatives, whatever the case is. And in many cases, the incapacity is far more stressful, I hate to say this, than losing someone. And I'm talking losing someone, due to old age or that type of thing, right? Kind of see that one coming. But incapacity, boy, that can happen at any time, right? Heart attack, stroke, car accident, whatever the case may be. So when I'm going to come back, I'm going to talk about estate planning and the importance of it when it comes to incapacity. My theme, why you don't have to be wealthy to need an estate plan. Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on Newstalk 780 KOH. Once again, a fairly lackluster day. Record setting on the Dow side, finished up 263, but the NASDAQ lost 222 and the S&P negative 13. All right, let's get back to the estate planning topic of the day. Again, try to bring one of these to you each and every Wednesday to further your knowledge in this area. Again, my title is why you don't have to be wealthy to need an estate plan. So let me recap what I've told you real quickly. Number one, remember, estate planning isn't about the money. It's about the loved ones in your life. Okay. Number two, if you own a home, that is one reason right there in and of itself that you need an estate plan. I had a friend tell me yesterday. Yesterday was a very eventful day. She got a call from a mortgage broker back east. I think, well, not really back east, but I think it was in Texas, and was inquiring about our services and things. And this mortgage broker said she fields about 10 questions or 10 requests for referrals a week of new home buyers realizing that they need an estate plan. I thought that was mind-boggling. And Dwight's kind of told me the same thing. So glad a lot of people are thinking about it, but a lot of people aren't. Now, hopefully after today's segment, you will be. So if you own a home, absolutely one reason, vacation home, etc., the family heirlooms, I went through all that. I left off with the third reason, because estate planning is also about the nasty I word, incapacity. Because again, when you mention estate planning, most people think, oh, it's just, what's going to happen after I'm gone? Who's going to get my money and so on and so forth. But we want you around, and things happen while you're still alive that can impact your estate. What happens if you suffer from a stroke? Have you ever been around somebody that has a stroke? Just picking on that. It's a tragic, tragic situation. They can't talk. Sometimes they lose their mental capacity. Bottom line, they can't make financial decisions. What about if you got into a car accident? Or what about if you develop, as my mom passed away from years ago, dementia? Who's going to pay your bills? Who's going to talk to the doctors on your behalf? How are the doctors going to know what your medical wishes are? I want to be on life support. I don't. I want hydration. I don't. I want fluids. I don't. You should see all the questions that we have to ask. Who's going to make the financial decisions for you? Because I'll give you the real life. We manage a pretty considerable sum of money. If you have a taxable account, and let's just say, you're by yourself, and you think say you have a son, you think he's going to handle everything, but you didn't do an estate plan. He cannot call us up and say, hey, dad just had a stroke and I need you to sell off $20,000 of his investments. Can't do it. It's illegal. Dad needs, $5,000 to, carry him forward for the next week. Sorry, can't do it. That account's frozen. We can't do anything. But if there is a trust, obviously you're going to name an agent for your advance directive, which is, again, the financial power of attorney. Now we can follow those instructions. Listen to the son if he's chosen to be that person. So many estate plans are used during the incapacity period of our life, then death. It's a very, very common fact, but one that many people forget. Fourth reason, I'm going to talk to you parents. I've mentioned this before, but I want to bring it to the table again. Without an estate plan, you have to ask yourself this question. And again, notice we're not talking money here. Who is going to raise your children if something happens to you and your spouse? Who's going to raise the kids? Who's going to manage their inheritance? Kids can't inherit, minors can't inherit money. Someone has to do it. You're going to leave it up to the court to determine, hey, your brother Bobby's the one that's going to take over the money, or maybe Bobby's a flake and the court doesn't know that. Maybe it should have been your sister Cindy. The court's not going to know that, but with an estate plan, it will. But who is going to raise your children? Who's going to financially support them? How are the financial decisions going to be made? And this is why we have our young adult package, because again, so many people, and we all know, of course, the divorce rate in this country over 50%. So blended families, blended young families, you got minor children, that in and of itself is a reason to have an estate plan. Forget about the medical directive, the healthcare, all the other things. You got little babies, and they're all babies in my mind until they're about 25 years old. You got babies you got to worry about. Who's going to raise them, how they're going to be raised, so on and so forth. That's the one that hits home, doesn't it? Another reason, talking about babies, are young adults in our life. Remember, folks, at age 18, mom and dad can no longer make any financial or medical decisions for your babies. As soon as your child hits 18, mom and dad are out of the picture. No financial decisions, no medical decisions. So what's a young adult to do? Well, they don't theoretically, unless they have a, big inheritance that they've already received or something, theoretically, they probably don't have much money at all. None of us did at that age. But guess what? They're all prone to get into accidents. Things happen to them just like they do anybody else. Age is not a discrimination when it comes to incapacity and things happening. So that's why we have our young adult package. I think it's $450, I think it is. We create the will, the healthcare directive, the financial power of attorney, the HIPAA authorization, the emergency contacts, etc. And I tell you, if you are a parent and, you, for whatever reason, disagree with what I'm saying, and you're like, yeah, you know what, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with my own personal estate plan later. Or if you're a grandparent and you're saying the same thing, take care of your children or your grandchildren. Get them taken care of. Make sure they have the healthcare, the financial, the medical, the HIPAA, everything there. Make sure they have it all, because we never know, especially young boys, right? How crazy we all are at 18, 19, 20 years old. We're indestructible. Nothing will ever happen to us. Well, we know that it's not true. So even a young adult in your life, get it for them for their birthday. Get it for them for their Christmas. If you need a reason, I don't think you need a reason if you love them. But man, oh man, just got to get that done. My sixth reason. Notice we're not talking about money. Estate planning reduces stress. Because when families know exactly what you want, there's no certainty. There's no conflict. There's no delays. There's no arguments. There's none of that. Well, I shouldn't say there's none. Sometimes it happens, but that's why most trusts have a no contest provision. Ours do. You contest your inheritance, you're out. That stops a lot of people from arguing, geez, Dad promised me, an extra $10,000 over my sister. No. That's why you have an estate plan. Many of us, again, especially if we have gray hairs, we've been through this with family. It's probably one of the hardest discussions that I have with people when we talk about, whether they need an estate plan. And I hear it on a daily basis. My kids love each other. They're never going to fight. They'll do, they know what my wishes are. The stories I could give you, both that I've gone through personally and that I've seen clients and friends go through. And I'm sure all of you have your own stories. When money gets involved, it doesn't matter whether you're blood or not. Hopefully it never happens, because let me tell you, there is absolutely nothing worse than when a family is fighting when they should be mourning the loss of that loved one. But they're fighting over this asset or this bank account or who's going to pay the bills or, let your imagination wander. All these things that we've covered. There is nothing worse. And you talk about a way to drive a wedge in between children that can last forever. Absolutely last forever. All because you didn't have an estate plan. So notice again, no dollar amounts talked about here. It's just about taking care of the family. So my final reason is very simple. Estate planning is not for you. It is a gift for your family. Or I should say a gift to your family. And I'll tell you why when we come back. Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on Newstalk 780 KOH. All right, we're going to wrap things up on our topic, why you don't have to be wealthy to have an estate plan. Once again, a 263 gain on the Dow. NASDAQ lost 222, S&P lower by 13. All right, once again, as a reminder, got my next upcoming educational webinar for you titled Trust Funding. the step most families miss. Next Wednesday, 6 p.m., no charge, of course, never will have a charge. Just go to my website, specializedtrusts.com, and right on the homepage, click to register. It's that simple. All right, back to our topic. So let me do a quick recap before I get to the estate planning is a gift to your family. So once again, here are my reasons for all of you to consider having a living trust. I can't tell you that you have to have one. That's your choice. I'm just giving you the information for you to make an informed adult decision. Once again, it's about the family. It's not about money. If you own a home, rental home, family heirlooms, reason number 2. Reason number 3, estate planning is also about incapacity, right? All those decisions that have to be made, financial, medical, paying the bills, speaking to the doctors, so on and so forth. Can't do that without an estate plan or some of the supporting powers of attorney documents. Parents, next reason. Parents need estate plans. Who's going to raise your children? You're going to leave it up to the courts if you don't have an estate plan to make that decision. Who's going to manage their inheritance? Who's going to make the financial decisions for those beautiful kids? You can if you have an estate plan. If not, the court's going to do it. The young adults, another reason. 18 plus, yeah, they don't have any assets or very little assets in most cases. You'd be surprised, though. Some of these kids, unlike my generation and your generation, my parents never bought me stocks when I was 10 years old or something. I mean, nowadays, of course, it's not uncommon for 18, 19-year-old to have 6 digits in a brokerage account that mom and dad started investing when they were born. I'm not talking a college 529. I mean, so sometimes they do have the assets and they do need a revocable trust, not just a will. But again, age 18, they need at least a will, healthcare directive, durable power of attorney. The next reason, reducing the family stress, right? We don't want families arguing, fighting. Again, that can last forever. These are deep scars that can last and drive a wedge between a family, for eternity. If you have an estate plan, usually that's not going to happen. Now, here's where I left off. Estate planning is a gift to your family. That's my final reason for you to consider having an estate plan. Because think about it. Your estate plan is not for you. Let me repeat that. Your estate plan is not for you. Unless, I'm going to put a little asterisk here. Unless you are getting into, donating to charities and endowments and things like that, more higher net worth type of strategies. But if we strip, donations and that type of thing out, it is not about you. It's about the people that you love, right? Everything that I've talked about with you this afternoon, it's all for your family. So they don't fight, so they can mourn you, so they can do everything you want them to do about your life. And the last thing that, as a parent or a grandparent that we would ever want to see with our family is them fighting over sometimes stupid things. I told you I had a family member where the 2 sisters, the grandfather had a beautiful laid out written trust, all the way down to the details of what suit he wanted to be buried in. And he passes away. And literally 2 hours after the burial concerned, we were at his house, and there was this old, ugly painting that you probably would not even give $5 for it at a garage sale. But these 2 sisters, they loved this painting. It had so much sentimental value from when their grandmother was alive. Been in the family for 1,000,000 years. Ugliest thing I've ever seen. But they started arguing just hours after they just buried their grandfather. No, I want the painting. No, I want the painting. Literally, they ended up storming out on the day of his funeral, and they did not speak for over 20 years because of the wedge that drove over a stupid painting. So imagine when wealth is involved, how more complicated it gets. So once again, the estate plan, it's not about you. It's for your family. It's for the people that you love. And I think if we could all put a little sentence or paragraph at the end of our trust and said the following: I did this because I care enough for my family to make things easier for you. Imagine your family reading something like that. Instead of saying, that son of a gun, he left us a bunch of bills. We can't get into his bank account. We can't talk to his doctor. We can't do anything. He screwed us over. All the things I've heard. That wasn't your intention. It's just you didn't get around to getting an estate plan done. Again, we can do it for you in 2 hours. Time is not an issue anymore. Cost is not an issue. $3,649 we can do it for. That's it. Not $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 like I ended up paying for mine. No. Those days are gone. 2 hours, $3,600. You're done. It's that simple from the comfort of your home. So I want to leave you with a couple closing thoughts. Again, I think I've convinced you that estate planning has very, very little to do with being rich. It has everything to do with being prepared. It has everything to do for your loved ones. Because again, you don't create an estate plan because you're wealthy. You create one because the people you love deserve clarity. They deserve protection and they deserve peace of mind. If you want to learn more about it, I've got a lot of articles and things on our website at specializedtrust.com. Just click on the STEP Learning Institute section of our website and you get more knowledge than you want. Or again, sign up for our upcoming educational webinar next Wednesday. God bless. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you again tomorrow on the John Sanchez Show.